Alright, what's going on my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a video that I made this type of video quite a while back, but obviously time has passed and things have changed since then. And in this video, we're going to be talking about my personal hit list for my ones that I would like to see as, potential future Super Evolutions coming to the game. On GP, they've actually released two Super Evolutions relatively quick behind each other. They had Blackbeard release and then V2 Zoro. V2 Zoro definitely needed it. Unfortunately, his Super Evolution is a little to be desired. I don't think they really hit the marks to make that character a lot better than what he already was. It's a very slight upgrade to the unit, so I really hope that the characters that I talk about in this video, when they eventually get a Super Evolution, that they become really powerful characters, especially in this day and age with some of the characters that we have these days. So let's jump into it with the first character on the list. So my number 5 is going to be V2 Sakazuki. Obviously V1 already has his Super Evolution and V3 is a relatively recent legend, so he's not going to be getting one anytime soon, you wouldn't think. So with V2 Sakazuki, it's kind of funny because when he first got announced on JP, I basically thought he was trash. I thought V2 Kuzan was pretty much better in every single way. But obviously as time progressed, we did see that V2 Sakazuki was probably the best legend in the game when he came out. He was just absurdly powerful. So the really cool thing about this guy, he does actually have an expanded captain effect, so that really will make his Super Evolution a little bit interesting, right? So if we just take his expanded captain effect and have a look at it, it's a 3.75 boost to strength and int, and then also strength and int slots are beneficial to strength and int, and then he does the end of turn damage. It's a single hit of end of turn damage to the enemy, depending on how many perfects you hit. So I think it is, 6 perfects will equal 500 times his own attack as an end of turn damage hit. So what can they do to this guy to make him a really good unit upon super evolving? Well, obviously the multiplier needs to increase. This should be potentially a 4.25, maybe a 4.5. And then, look, if they're going to go to like a 4.5 captain, then they basically don't need to touch this end of turn damage. Like, the end of turn damage is the main reason why this character was as good as what he was. Obviously, in this day and age, the multiplier is a little low, but he can still partner up relatively well with some of the int super types that are in the game. And there's plenty of int super types in the game right now, especially on JP, mind you. So that's pretty good. And then look, I think the only thing they really need to change with his captain effect is increase the damage multiplier, because 3.75 just isn't really all that much. And then, yeah, like the end of turn damage, it is a nice touch, but again, in this day and age where you have enemies with, 40 million HP, this end of turn damage really doesn't hurt the enemy in a lot of cases. But in high difficulty content, being able to just wave clear mini bosses with this end of turn damage is really nice. Maybe if they make it AoE damage instead, that would be pretty crazy. It'd be very similar to like Kaido, but you have to hit your perfects in order to get all of that damage output. That would be pretty interesting if they did make it AoE damage. It really would be. So just the multiplier, maybe a damage reduction would be nice, or an HP boost of some kind would be pretty cool. But yeah, that's that. Or maybe like, actually, what would be really cool is if his captain effect just like you take no damage from burn. That would be pretty sick, actually, because obviously you have to hit your perfects in order to get his end of turn damage, and if you're burnt, that's a big problem. But he's literally a Kainu. He's magma. He shouldn't be able to get burnt, right? It should just resist all burn on top of buffing the other components of his captain effect. That would be actually amazing. Holy crap. As for his special ability, there pretty much needs to be no change. Maybe just increase this to a 2.5 all boost. That'd be pretty fair. And maybe add some other effect, like, maybe you don't want to get rid of burn on his captain effect, but I think that would be amazing. They could just remove all turns of burn with his special ability, would be pretty cool too. So if you use him as a sub, you can just remove all turns of burn. That would be pretty cool. His special ability is still great to this day. Like, there's no reason why this needs to be altered, but they could make it a 2.25 for like 2 or 3 turns. That would be pretty godly, actually, or just make it 1 turn 2.5. Either of those would be pretty fine with me. But I would love to see this guy get a Super Evolution in some capacity, because he's one of my favorite units in the game, despite all of his bad sides. But I think he's really, really cool, and would love to see him get a little bit of a buff. So my number 4 is going to be V2 Doflamingo, and this guy was quite crazy when he first came out. And it's kind of funny, but because this guy was so good when he came out, they literally had to bring out the normal attacks only debuff to nerf this guy because he was that good. the fact that you could just spam his special and deal like 100 million damage with relative ease was a bit of a problem. So they had to bring out a debuff to really nerf this guy, and there was lots of content where they basically just nerfed the Driven class, like they inflicted really absurd turns of special bind, or they just basically debuffed Driven units that you brought because this character was so good when he first came out. But you know, for the first little bit of his release, he was arguably one of the best legends in the game. This character definitely needs a big buff. His captain effect, it's just a Driven boosting captain, and you do need 6 Driven characters on your team for his captain effect. This should be removed completely. His attack boost is a 3.9 boost if they've got a beneficial slot, 3.25 otherwise. Still a 20% health boost, and then lowers the chance of strength orbs, and Dex and Quick are beneficial for Driven characters. So this is very similar to Legend Lucy. His captain effect is very, very similar to Legend Lucy in a lot of ways. So what they could do, honestly, is just remove the fact that you need a matching slot, make it just a flat 4 times or a 4.25. They should remove the restriction. They should make this, I guess the HP could probably stay the same, but maybe add damage reduction or a healing effect on top of that would be pretty interesting to see. And then just make strength, dex, and quick beneficial. There's not much they have to do to make this guy really good, and even they could even go a step further and then, you know, be a flat 4 times boost to Driven, but maybe add Cerebral on top of that, so he boosts Driven and Cerebral. That would be really good, because Driven characters, they're not the best in the game, but Cerebral are arguably the best class right now. I mean, especially on JP with the release of the V2 dual units with Shirahoshi Mancherry, Vivi Rebecca, Sanji and Pudding as well. All these powerful Cerebral units, that would really make this character even better than what he already is, right? His Sailor effects are whatever, that doesn't really make too much of a difference. And then his special ability, well, honestly, his special ability does not need change. I know some people out there would just be absolutely stupid and say, oh, make his special go through normal attacks only, which, no, they shouldn't do that, because his special is already way too good. Potentially, what they should do, though, is that if you are under normal attacks only, it makes his special useless, so maybe add some type of other mechanic on top of it. So it does the damage, but maybe does something like give you a full board of orbs, or an attack boost of some kind would be pretty cool. Just give you something if you cannot use his special. Like, maybe, oh, you know what would be really cool? If he's just like, when you launch his special, remove like 5 turns of barrier on all enemies, or something like that. Or like remove 5 turns of like all defensive effects and then launch the special. Something like that would be pretty interesting. Like, have a really cool debuff removal on top of doing his absurd damage. You know, that would be pretty interesting, because if you had a really OP utility effect, people would probably just use him just for the utility effect rather than just the damage, which would be pretty cool, honestly. So those are the things that V2 Dofi really needs to make him a lot better. You know, potentially Driven and Cerebral Captain, buff multiplier, more matching slots, and then maybe a recovery or damage reduction effect would be pretty sick. And then a utility-based part of his special would be very, very nice. And then his cooldown is quite high, so maybe reducing the cooldown a little bit would be very, very much appreciated. But would love to see this guy get a super evolution. So my number 3 spot is going to be Luffy and Ace. Luffy and Ace being the first dual legend to arrive in One Piece Treasure Cruise, and a lot of people have been asking for a long time, when are we ever going to get a dual unit with a 6+? And I don't know when that's ever going to happen. I really hope it happens soon, because it needs to be buffed. This character is so outdated. I mean, just have a look at what this character does, right? So the singular captains, 3 times to free spirit, they got a health boost and damage reduction, that's the Luffy captain. The Ace captain effect is 3.5 with a matching slot, 2.25 otherwise, it's so bad, and a 20% health boost. And then their dual captain is 4.25 with a matching slot, 3 times otherwise, and then HP boost of 1.2 and 20% damage reduction. So obviously, this needs to be buffed significantly. Also, something that would be cool, like what if they gave this guy a super evolution, and instead of being Luffy and Ace, it becomes Luffy and Sabo. I think that would be pretty interesting too, and they just make it like they're Dressrosa themed. That would be really cool. I'd love to see that, but I don't know if that would outright change the character from being an Ace unit to a Sabo unit. I don't know if they would do that, but if they would, I mean, I'd be down for it. That'd be pretty sick. But honestly, a lot of things need to change here. I think in their dual form, it needs to be like a flat 4.5 minimum, and then the rest of it could probably stay the same. You know, flat 4.5, 20% health, and then 20% damage reduction. The rest of that would be pretty okay with me, honestly. And then his special ability as well, it does a bit of damage to all enemies, changes all type slots on free spirit characters into matching, and it's a rainbow 2 times orb boost for 1 turn. So obviously this needs to change as well. Maybe change all type orbs. Maybe it should just change all orbs into matching on free spirit characters, like through block orbs as well. Just give them a full board of matching orbs, and then be a 2.25 boost to maybe just free spirit. Maybe. I mean, look, you can still use it on a lot of different teams, the fact that it is a rainbow boost. But look, his switch ability, it only really works on himself. That's the real downside there, is like, it is a good switch effect for this unit, but it doesn't help your team out. It just helps out this unit on your team. So it's not really, really useful. But I think that if they just make this guy fully free spirit centric, it would be a little bit of a nice buff. But the thing is there's already a lot of really good Luffys in the game, and I mean, I don't really know if if this guy got a super evolution, whether he would even be used or not. But yeah, I think that if they make this a 2.25 or a 2.5 orb boost to just free spirit, and maybe what they could do as well is it changes orbs to free spirit to matching and then gives you a 1-turn orb lock so you can carry orbs through multiple stages. I would love to see that as well. But dude, it is such a shame because this guy is like so outdated. He needs to be buffed so badly. I would love to see this guy get a super evolution, but I mean, it goes for any dual legend in the game. Whitebeard and Marco, I think, would be a really nice unit to get super evolved. The original Shirahoshi and Manchuri, I would love to see get a super evolution as well. But then you got some other dual units like Bato and Cavendish and like Sanji and Judge, who, yeah, they are relatively old nowadays, but they're still really good units. Like, they're still used to this day, and they're not really bad, and they're not outdated in any way. I mean, you could say their captain effects are definitely a lot weaker compared to the ones we see now, but that's bound to happen. But it's just the fact that their switch ability and their special ability are just still so powerful, whereas this character is just outdated in almost every facet compared to the other dual units that we have. So this guy definitely needs a super evolution, hopefully sometime soon. And my number 2 position is going to be V3 Rayleigh. Now, it is kind of funny because this is a character that released this year, and he already needs a super evolution. Like, I think many would agree that this is probably the worst SugoFest exclusive that released during 2020. There was just so many different components of this unit that should be changed in very, very minor ways that would make this guy so much better than what he currently is. So let's go ahead and break that down. So his captain effect boosts the attack of fighter and cerebrals by 4 times and then gives you 15% damage reduction. That is essentially the only captain effect you're going to have, and then during the turn you use his special, his own attack is boosted by 4.75 times. So very simply what they can do is they can keep this all the way it is. I don't really mind that, but if you use the special, just boost fighter and cerebral by 4.75 instead, or maybe just instead of making it 4.75 for all fighter and free spirit, make it 4.5 instead. Giving his own attack 4.75, it's cool and all, but it's nothing like Douglas Bullet, because Douglas Bullet's also the same thing. But Douglas Bullet is Rainbow. He's super effective against all types. This is not the case. Rayleigh ain't doing that. So they should just make this boost fire and cerebral by 4.75 whenever you use the special. And honestly, they probably don't need to move it from that. I think that captain effect by itself is probably just okay. I don't think they would need to change that. And then, I mean, potentially if they wanted to do something, they could add maybe a health boost on top of it. Maybe, you know, if every perfect you hit, you get a recovery from that. Maybe. But I think just changing this to be all fight and cerebral 4.75 would be more than enough. Now, his special ability, this is where the big changes need to happen. 250 times his attack and typeless damage to one enemy that ignores all damage negating abilities and barriers. That is okay. Then he boosts the attack of fighter and cerebral by 2 times for 1 turn and amplify their orbs by 2 times for 1 turn as well. So it's a 2 times attack, 2 times orb boost to fighter and cerebral for that 1 turn that you launch the special. That is also okay. Also makes fighter and cerebral characters attacks ignore damage reducing barriers and buffs. That is also really good. So that on paper is a very good special. However, you have the little note that says, when you launch his special, you can no longer use any other special ability during that turn. So this is the thing that needs to change. The restriction on his special makes this character so much worse. Now, some people say, oh yeah, but you can still use him for this content. You can still use him for this content. And I completely agree. Yeah, he definitely has his uses, but he could be so much better than just in those niche pieces of content. This guy could be a god tier unit in the game, but they have this really poor restriction where you can only use his special during the turn you launch it. So what they need to do is allow you to at least use 1 or 2 other special abilities, or just remove the restriction altogether. If they were to do that, they would need to reduce something in this special here. Potentially make it a 1.75 attack and orb boost. As much as I would hate that, maybe that might be what they need to do. Or what they could do is make the multipliers a lot less. So like, as I said, you know, 1.75 attack and orbs, but then instead of, you know, having that reduced multiplier, which would obviously suck, add like a 1.5 or a 1.75 color affinity on top of that. That probably makes him even more broken, but what they need to do is allow you to use other specials during the turn you can launch it. Otherwise, it seems pointless in my eyes, because there's going to be certain fights where you can't use his special and remove debuffs, which means you have to stall. It just makes this character so bad to use in content, and this is why no one really uses this guy. And as I said, yes, he does have uses in a lot of content, but he could be a lot better than what he currently is if the restriction was removed. And then by also making this all characters, or all fighter and cerebral units when you launch the special, man, this guy would actually be a god if they just made those very minor changes. He would be a very powerful unit in the game, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Would love to see him get a buff during 2021. And now my number one character that I would love to see get a super evolution in 2021, or just in the future, is going to be V2 Katakuri. My man, Mr. Slanjam, I have to represent my boy. I would love to see this guy get a super evolution. He would be amazing. So let's talk about him real quick. His captain effect is very similar to V1, where you need to have a character with 2 of these classes, and they get a 1.825 boost, which is a 3.3 bonus. So it's a 3.3 times multiplier to those classes, which is pretty bad in this day and age, as we know. But then you get the 1.4 color affinity, which is pretty awesome actually. If you attack with color affinity, it's like a 4.6 multiplier if you have, you know, characters with both of these classes and also attacking with type advantage. It's like a 4.6, I think it is. So that's really good. And then it also makes strength, sight, recovery tandem matching to all characters, and recover 50% of the damage that you took in the previous stage. Now, his captain effect wise, definitely needs to be changed. This should be buffed. This should be very similar to V1 Katakuri 6+, actually. If I just go ahead and increase the cost and just bring him up real quick. This guy right here, this is the 6+. So his multiplier is... it's not listed here, actually. Is it 1.95? Yeah, 1.95. Yeah, that's it. 1.95, or even up to 2 times per class. So it'd be a 4 times captain. I think that would be pretty fair. So he goes to a 2 times captain, 2 times to all these classes, which means if they have those classes, they become a 4 times boost. And then you have the color affinity on top of that, which would need to change. I think that probably should be altered a little bit. So let's say, so currently it's like 3.3 times 1.4. Yeah, so this is his current multiplier right now if you have the 1.825 and the 1.4 color affinity. So potentially you make it 4.75, and then you have the multiplier be 4. So maybe make it a 1.2, right? Maybe make this a 1.2, but then make this a 2 times. I think that would be pretty fair. So you'd have a 4 times multiplier multiplied by 1.2. It's a 4.8 multiplier with color affinity. That is kind of OP, but I think it would be a pretty fair exchange, because you're not always going to be attacking with color affinity. Characters that need to attack with color affinity, like V1, VV Rebecca, are only really good in Kizuna Clash. But then again, what if you just did that? What if you just did that? What if you just make him really, really good in Kizuna Clash? But there is a main problem with that, in the fact that his special ability basically is useless in Kizuna Clash, but we'll get to that. But everything else about his captain effect doesn't really need to change. The matching slots are fine, and recovering 50% of the damage that you took in the previous stage, completely fine with me, because it works really well with his special. So his special ability, it requires you to take a certain amount of damage. You need to take 200,000 damage to get 30 times damage taken as damage, and then also adds 15 times as tap timing bonus damage. So what they need to do is just reduce the cap and then increase the multiplier, so that you are able to reach his max cap much easier, because reaching 200,000 damage taken in a fight is so difficult to do. Well, it's not difficult, but it takes a long time, and it makes him just not ideal to use in a fight. So what they should do is maybe reduce it by half, or maybe make it very similar to Hawkins, where he only needs to take 50,000 damage, and then all the multipliers are just increased, so that you can reach that cap a lot easier. I think that would be really cool. If they reduce it by like by 75%, and then increase these by 75%, oh my god, that would be so freaking good. Being able to just take 50,000 damage and you get the max cap that quick. But then again, like, he adds 3 million damage per tap if that's at max cap, which I think is kind of broken. But then again, like, as I said before, a little earlier on in this video, you know, enemies have like 40 million HP these days. So is that really that far-fetched to really think that could be something they could do? Probably not, right? That could be something that they could really add and make this character just insanely busted. Toadskii from the future here, just wanted to interject here saying that, again, very similar to V2 Doflamingo, V2 Katakuri has that problem where if you are inflicted with normal attacks only, his special ability is essentially useless. So again, very similar to V2 Doflamingo, they should add something extra to his special, where if you are inflicted with normal attacks only, it doesn't make him completely useless in the fight, whether that be some type of way to get a full board of matching slots, or add additional color affinity to those classes that he boosts in his captain effect. I think would be a pretty nice addition, just to add some freshness to the special, despite having normal attacks only. But I think Katakuri deserves it. I think that would be a really nice touch. And look, you still are very restricted in the characters that you can bring because of the class restriction. But, you know, if he's going to be used as a sub and you only have to take 50,000 damage, for example, man, that would be kind of good. I mean, even if they reduce it to 100,000 damage and then double the multipliers, even that would be okay with me. I think that would be really good, you know. But 200,000 is a bit of a stretch in my eyes. I'm not a big fan of that. But seeing this guy get a super evolution would be one of the hypest moments for me personally. I really hope it happens. And of course, his super evolution would be the buzz cut mochi. Would love to see it and turn it into the donut form. Oh, dude, that would be so godly. But anyways, let me know down below in the comment section what your top 5 most wanted super evolutions are in One Piece Treasure Cruise, because hopefully in 2021 we see some of the characters that we talked about in this video, or maybe some of the ones that you guys are hoping for. Would love to see some buffs during the next year. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But on that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.